Regreso nuevamente. Buenas tardes, por si no tuvieron oportunidad de escucharme. Les comento que estamos muy contentos de que nos acompañen nuevamente en esta serie de seminarios. Como siempre, lo primero es desearles que se encuentren bien, al igual que todos en su familia, y les agradezco el interés que están poniendo en esta nueva faceta de seminarios, ¿no? Seminarios técnico-comerciales, en donde la industria está teniendo la oportunidad de dar a conocer sus novedades. Obviamente que, como lo comentamos la vez anterior, sin olvidarse de la importancia de la parte técnica, ¿no? Técnica comercial. En esta ocasión, la empresa que nos estará dando seminario va a ser Agromed, que es socio comercial de Grupo ISA, a las cuales también agradecemos la confianza que tienen con Amena para participar en este foro. De esta manera quiero dar la bienvenida al ingeniero agrónomo Matthew Darraguer, que es gerente de México y Latinoamérica de esta empresa Agromed, como les decía, socio comercial de Grupo ISA. Y también quiero hacer un agradecimiento muy especial para nuestro ponente, quien desde Francia, prácticamente ya a la medianoche, nos estará dictando su ponencia. Matthew, por favor, si gustas abrir tu micrófono y tu imagen, comenzamos.
Buenas tardes a todos. El video no lo puedo activar todavía, pero muchísimas gracias, doctor Cervantes. Gracias a todos los asistentes por su participación a este evento. Espero que será de su agrado y aprendan cosas y surjan preguntas, dudas y puedan intercambiar con nuestro ponente Pierre. Agradecer también a la MENA que nos ofrece estos momentos de intercambios que en esta época es muy, muy benéfico para todos. Quiero agradecer también al Grupo ISA, que es nuestro distribuidor desde ahora más de un año. Vamos a empezar, de hecho, con una breve presentación de Grupo ISA. Luego pasaremos a una breve presentación de Agromed y cuando acabe esta corta etapa, empezará la charla del doctor Pierre, que les presentaré más a detalle adelante. Y cuando empiece él, pues podrán darle clic al mundito que se encuentra abajo para tener la traducción simultánea. Muchas gracias a todos. Adelante para la presentación del video de Grupo ISA.
Hoy es un nuevo comienzo. Nuestro planeta no se detiene. Todos buscamos avanzar y evolucionar para llegar más lejos. Hoy, 127 millones de personas formamos México y pronto seremos más, lo que fortalece nuestro compromiso con los productores de proteína animal para ayudarlos a crear y llevar a la mesa de las familias mexicanas alimentos cada vez más nutritivos y saludables para un sano desarrollo. En 1980, Francisco Romero Bloch decide iniciar una nueva aventura, enfocada a proveer al sector pecuario productos de tecnología avanzada y servicios de vanguardia, lo que a lo largo de 40 años convierte a Grupo ISA en una empresa líder nacional, expertos en las áreas de salud, nutrición, genética porcina y bioseguridad. Hoy, trabajamos duro de la mano de nuestros socios comerciales para llegar a cada productor y tener el privilegio de juntos formar parte del gran proceso de alimentar a México. En Grupo ISA, creemos que la innovación y la investigación son el motor para evolucionar, el motor para encontrar soluciones para el futuro de nuestra familia, del productor mexicano, de nuestro porvenir, del bienestar animal y del planeta en que vivimos. Hoy cumplimos 40 años de caminar a tu lado, de levantarnos y aprender de derrotas, de celebrar éxitos juntos y compartir sueños y convertirlos en realidad. Hoy seguimos avanzando, seguimos impulsando la producción pecuaria hacia la prosperidad. Grupo ISA, 40 años innovando la industria pecuaria.
Muy bien. Ahora me gustaría presentarles la empresa agromed. Es una empresa austríaca que lleva ahora 20 años en el mercado y está orgullosamente representada en México por parte del Grupo ISA, que seguramente todos conocen. En pocas palabras, agromed es una empresa que respeta el protocolo de Kioto desde el 2020. Tenemos contratos que nos hacen una de las primeras empresas del mundo en estar neutras en emisiones de carbono. Pero el propósito principal de agromed es contribuir a la resolución de las metas de la nutrición animal actual, los que pues, todo el mundo conoce. Obviamente buscamos maximizar la eficiencia, buscar mejor desempeño de los animales, bajar las pérdidas, hacer productos finales de calidad, todo esto con un apoyo al bienestar animal y pues en fin los productos que vamos a manejar van a actuar sobre la salud animal. La materia prima con la que trabajamos para contestar estos retos de la industria es madera fresca, 100% natural. Básicamente todos los productos que manejamos, cual que sea su forma, desde los más finos hasta los más granulados, un poco más gruesos, son compuestos de partículas muy pequeñas que encontramos en los árboles. Básicamente hay diferentes capas en el árbol que podemos ocupar, una que sería el centro, el tronco del árbol, otra que sería el cambión, que es la parte donde el árbol maneja sus intercambios de nutrientes de abajo hacia arriba, de arriba hacia abajo, y el tronco, que es madera muerta, donde vamos a encontrar principalmente polifenoles. A partir de esta materia prima, sabemos que se abren muchas posibilidades para la zootecnia, porque según las fracciones de los árboles que vamos a ocupar, fibras fermentables, fibras insolubles, vamos a poder conseguir a nivel intestinal efectos distintos, antiinflamatorio, antibacterial, control de peristalsis, etcétera. A partir de este patrón de oportunidades, agromed ha desarrollado 3 grandes familias de productos, una que es la de cuidado animal, donde principalmente tenemos secantes, una que es de aditivos, soluciones nutricionales con el propósito de proponer productos naturales en sustitución a los antibióticos promotores de crecimiento, y también tenemos ingredientes funcionales, que son los en los que nos vamos a enfocar hoy, que en nuestro caso se llaman Fibrecel y Opticel. Estos productos son fibras dietéticas a base de lignocelulosa. Distinguimos en esta familia de productos las lignocelulosas de primera generación, que son lignocelulosas no fermentable, 100% no fermentable y 100% insoluble, es decir, que es materia inerta, que va a tener una acción física en el tracto intestinal, va a ayudar a maximizar la superficie de intercambios en el tracto intestinal, el desarrollo de las vellosidades, va a prevenir la ascensión de patógenos del intestino grueso al intestino delgado, y van a ayudar en general de forma física. Cuando al contrario, las fibras de segunda generación, tales como Opticel, que es nuestro producto estrella, van a tener este efecto también, pero además un gran valor agregado, porque pues, tenemos también una fracción fermentable, que es lo que realmente nos hace diferente. Y además de la fracción física, vamos a tener una acción fisiológica, es decir, que el producto va a actuar como prebiótico, generando fermentaciones en el intestino grueso, y va a favorecer la formación de ácidos grasos volátiles, especialmente el ácido butírico, el cual sabemos tiene mucha utilidad. Esto se va a reflejar de muchas otras formas, como en calidad de heces, absorción de agua y salud intestinal también en general. El producto Opticel se usa en varias especies. Hoy nos vamos a enfocar en cerdos, pero para su conocimiento, pues, les pongo aquí la tabla de especies donde se usa. En aves se usa, se puede usar inclusive en conejos y mascotas para mejorar de forma significativa la calidad de heces y firmeza de las heces. Muchas gracias por su atención. Ahora me gustaría introducirles el ponente de hoy, que es una persona muy de mucho valor técnico y científico. Es alguien que tiene mucha experiencia en nutrición animal. Se llama el doctor Pierre Lebreton. Lleva 25 años en el mercado de nutrición animal. Ha trabajado como nutricionista en una gran empresa francesa que se llama Provimi, bueno, la parte francesa de Provimi. Luego tomó el mando de la empresa y fue director general. Trabajó con muchas cooperativas, plantas de alimento, muchas granjas, y desde ahora 4 años es un consultor externo muy apreciado por la industria francesa. Interviene mucho en Europa y en Asia, un poco menos hasta ahora en América Latina, dando asesoría en nutrición animal, formulación, pero también en problemáticas más generales, tales como el manejo, la salud del hato, cosas administrativas, gestión del personal. Entonces es una persona que con su amplio conocimiento nos puede aportar mucho, y espero que disfruten su ponencia.
Perfect. We can begin. Sorry about this. Now can begin. So I was telling you, I'm very happy to have this session with you. And again, it's a big subject. We can spend 1 week focusing on all parts concerning this subject, which is how to decrease, take into control the cost, the final cost of production in our swine industry. Focusing on what can be brought by the sow. And okay, we have 1 hour, roughly 1 hour. So I will try to spend with you and focus on the main driver on this sow to be able to decrease these costs. Okay, very, very fastly. I spent 20 years of my life directly involved in this swine industry, firstly in France and Europe, where I'm come from, of course. I've been in charge of, I've been an expert for swine in the French and European Provimi team. And I learned a lot in this period because we have to face economical difficult situation in this swine industry. We need to find some solution in order to decrease the cost of production. That's why we did mistakes, and now I can share this experience. I've been in charge of the global feed branch of a big cooperative in France. It was another way to understand from the factory, from the industrial point of view, how to adapt the feed in order to get the best and the lowest price, the lowest cost in the farm, in our farm, for our farmers. And since almost 4 years now, I'm sharing this experience and mostly focusing on what's coming from the gut microbiota and how we can improve health, welfare, and at the end performance, but also take into control this cost in swine, and mostly in Asia with a big customer in China, Philippines, Thailand, Russia, and more and more I'm coming to Latin America, and I really enjoy. So today we have this hour together to face how, from a very specific management of the sows, and we will focus on the part related to nutrition, we are able to control and to decrease the cost of the production. So focusing on the fundamental requirements of source, how to have a huge regular economical efficiency. Everywhere in the world, and it's the same in Mexico, the economical valorization is the same. It's always valorization and cost. What you can be paid from your animal, what are your costs? What are the technical performance, but are the specific costs to reach those kind of performance? So it's always a kind of balance. Everything is not in your hand, like the price of the pork, but mostly what is related to cost, we can control. In the swine, we are not doing miracles from nutrition. We are in a holistic organization. What does it mean? For all farmers in all this swine industry, and here you have a picture of one of my customer in China with this kind of building, we focused always in a holistic and global approach. This will involve management, what's come from people, as organization, as a worker, ability, capacity, knowledge, how to use dashboard in order to have information, standardized one that we can take a good decision when we face some change. Housing in several ways, and including biosecurity, organization that can bring first efficiency for the worker, protection for the animal, and as far as possible, welfare to the animal in order to express this genetic potential. Of course, genetic will play a role, and adapted genetic is so important. We must have the genetic related to this global holistic organization. Health program that in the world are becoming more and more a challenge as soon as we are decreasing the use of antibiotic. In my area, we are not using preventive antibiotic, and we are selling meat without antibiotic. And I can tell you, it's a challenge. It's a daily challenge. And at the end, we have the nutrition. And I will say at the end. And again, nutrition, we are not doing miracle from nutrition. And without this positive, global, holistic approach, it's really difficult to get the best from the animal and to express the genetic potential. We really need to have this global approach. Okay, so we have the main financial groups of cost. Of course, the structural cost, close to 20% from 15 to 30. And we will focus today on the operational cost, and especially inside of those nutritional costs. Okay. And what is really important and more important is to be able to have an investment strategy. Okay, the feed is already probably everywhere, and the same for you, the highest cost in this cost of production. But we can have this investment strategy in order to maybe improve a little bit cleverly, and then be paid back by a better efficiency, better performance. What does it mean? It means higher unitary cost for a better global economical efficiency and returns. Some of the specific criteria that we can focus on in the farm, and we are creating specific dashboard in the farm in order to have a fast capacity to react. We have some technico-economical criteria. At the first stage, we have the PSY. PSY express a lot of information related to the sow efficiency, and it's not enough at this first stage. I know a lot of farmers focusing on the PSY, especially in China, that make big mistakes, because you can improve this number of piglets per sow per year, but decrease the piglet quality. And at the end, what you invest in one part, you will lose it in the capacity of the piglet to grow up efficiently. So PSY is important, but in the same time, piglet quality is as important. And I really insist it is as important. In the second stage, we have, of course, losses of animal, losses in the post-weaning area and losses in the fatteners. What we call the feed conversion ratio is the highest, the more efficient criteria to follow economically, of course, but always a matter of balance. You need to check the level of investment and what you will pay back on this FCR. And we use for our farmer, especially here, we focus on this one every month, is a cost of kilo of gross. This cost of kilo of gross, it's a synthetic criteria that will mix together price of the feed, cost of the feed, and efficiency, average daily gain, FCR. And at the end, we also have, depending on markets, the quality of the carcass that can also bring some specific added value. So let's say 6 main criteria that can drive the global economical efficiency of the swine farm. With our farmer, we have, in order to teach them to be more and more economical, once a year, coming from the national statistic, we calculate what is the impact for those criteria of an improvement. For example, an improvement of the global FCR of the farm, global FCR, including sows, of 0.1 point, so decreasing of 0.1, will bring, in our context, okay, it was last year, almost 70 euro per sow, or expressed in 100 kilo carcass, 3.2 euro per 100 kilo carcass. So that's a lot. That's a lot. PSY, as soon as you improve one more pig sold per year, it's around 660 euro per sow, or close to 3 euro per 100 kilo of pig. That's also very important, okay? And here you can see the impact of losses or the FCR, depending for piglets and fatteners. It can help for one farm to organize where we should invest in order to improve this technico-economical criteria. Okay, so from those statistics, we can already see something. We can already understand that sows and the sows efficiency can help to improve the economical situation. And of course, as soon as you focus on the sows, you can improve regularity, which is something also very important in the farm organization and the farm global efficiency. Regularity in the production, that also means sustainability. It's also one way to improve the resistance to farm pressure, and something which is becoming more and more important in the big farm is to help to facilitate the work organization and to limit the turnover of workers. So from the sows performance, of course, we have a direct impact from the nutrition on embryo fetus, but also piglet losses. And we will spend some time on this one. This is a very important part that will completely change the productivity and the prolificity. We can also play on the way we will prepare the piglet. We will change the immunity of the sows. We will be able to help for a better immunity that will help also to drive a global improvement in the health status of the farm. We can change, and it's our main challenge today, and we are finding solution. We can improve the intrauterine nutrition. During this gestation, we can help to have a bigger litter with a better piglet quality at birth. And this will help for the next stage, the weaning preparation. Of course, it will induce a better milk production, and it is mostly due to a better piglet quality at birth. Okay, so all those criteria coming from the sows, the production period, the cost, the duration of the feeding, the health cost, the cost of the gill preparation, all of them will play on the two main impact, which are the average cost of piglet coming from productivity, average individual cost of piglet, but also this preparation for an individual potential for efficiency. More piglet, still in a good quality with uniformity. It will help to drive the capacity to save money, better maturity, better FCR, better muscle deposition, and then it will help you to earn more money. Okay, what are the fundamental requirements? At school, we learn that the sow, the animal, has three main parts in this requirement. Maintenance. Those maintenance requirements can be calculated depending on activity, block source, or source that are in welfare condition that can work, for example. Of course, weight, the skin surface. Very important for this maintenance calculation, the gap to the neutral thermic situation. How far are we from 20 degrees? Can be above, that's its stress, can be below, and then we need to compensate. All of this will help to calculate, and we can calculate accurately the maintenance requirement. The second one is growth. And it's something for sows that is changing. With modern genetic, the capacity to grow of the sows is not only 1 or 2 parity. Today, it's very common to see some genetic that bring growth until 4th and sometimes 5th parity. Small, but still. Okay. In this growth, we also consider the body recovery, and this, of course, negative during the lactation. The production, when we produce oocyte, of course, fetus, but also other colostrum and milk. That's what we learn from school. And I can tell you that it's not enough. Today, in those requirements, we have a new one, is the expression of what I call the industrial welfare. This capacity to act on very specific agent, like the heat stress, the satiety, okay, limiting inflammation, controlling the oxidative stress, will completely change the usual classical standard, the one we know for a long time, requirement for the sow. So we need to take into account those 3 main ones, but how we are able to control or adapt those industrial welfare related criteria. And those sows, okay, so here it's a very hyperprolific genetic. I will not tell the name, but maybe you recognize. And you see on these curves that from the first parity until the fourth parity, we still have growth. So we still have specific requirement, mostly proteic one, in order to face this phenotype expression. The sow will still growing after the fourth parity. And of course, our sows are playing in a cycle, and inside this cycle, we don't have the same requirement. And when we calculate the requirement, we can see that all the ratio between nutrients are really different. And it's not easy to only use one feed to be able to fulfill those specific requirements during this cycle. So we have many parameters to take into account to be able to approach those requirements. And of course, to save money, we need to be as close as possible to those requirements. The number of teats, it's something that changed a lot in the past 5 to 10 years. And from this one, these guilds, to this one, you can understand that the requirement to prepare the udder will be completely different. Okay, the udder development is something that was completely underestimated in the past, and we did mistake because of this. The number of piglet, the litter size is also improving a lot. In the same time, the phenotype expression is also different. And with modern genetic, we are facing many changes that makes our job a little bit more difficult, because we need to adapt to genetic, but also to farm situation, to gill preparation that will make a phenotype expression maybe different. We are facing now really high productive animals. And what we are able to do with the sows, it's quite incredible, and it's still improving. It's 36 piglet per year, kilo of piglet per year, 60 kilo of conceptus per year, close to 500 liters of milk per year. Okay, what does it mean? They will produce more than 35% of their own body weight. They will produce from the milk more than 200% of their own body weight. And of course, this is average from this area. And we have some farmer with already close to 37 to 38 PSY. And the sows are like Formula One. A Formula One, you really need to have a good fuel to be able to drive this this car. So it's the same for the sows. So we have a busy animal, and our target as a nutritionist is to be able in this global cycle to fulfill the requirement for the sow, and in the same time for embryo and fetus. And nature is well done, and we are facing strong animal, and the priority during the gestation is given, mostly given to fetus. That can create, and that create quite often, catabolism, mostly protein catabolism. What does it mean? In front of the requirement of the fetuses, especially, of course, in the third part of gestation, if we don't give enough in quantity and in quality the protein, the sow will use the protein coming from the udder, the intestine, then from the muscle, in order to face those requirements. And this is the beginning of a very negative cycle. And then the production, the quality of the piglet, the quantity will be affected. So we are playing with a strong animal. this sow is a strong animal. But with the global evolution everywhere, we are facing more and more sensitivity. So it's both a strong animal for a lot of parameters, but in the same time, it's a sensitive animal. What does it mean? All the stresses that we can have in the farm, okay, will limit the production, will limit the expression of the potential. And there is no genetical expression of the potential without the control of the sensitivity. So we don't have the time today to face all of them accurately, but I will go quite fast on the main one. Okay, so we have, for me, 7 very important key period or key criteria to face in order to help the sows to express the potential. The first one is feed intake. I used to say that in a lot of places in the world, we are feeding the sows like we feed birds, mostly grain and small amount. And when you feed the sow with small amount, you create a stress. You create a physical stress and a physiological stress. Okay, this is the first one. I told you because of time I will go fast. The body condition in a farm, in order to have a efficient way of management, we really need to have an accurate management of body condition. We need to have a high percentage of what we call the sows in the box. As soon as we don't have more than 65% of those sows in a regular shape, not too fat, not too thin, we are losing money. It's maybe one of the more difficult to drive in a farm, and especially when we are using high density feed with high level of energy. The protein catabolism, again, especially during the end of gestation and of course during lactation, is one of the main cause of the loss or the fact that we are losing money in reality compared to the potential of the animal. The sow will use easily the protein coming from the body, and every time we are doing this, we are playing on the hormonal set. We are playing on the weaning to estrus interval. We are improving the period of non-productive animals, and we are also acting on the ovocyte quality that will lead to poor quality of piglets, mostly because of a bad ovocyte preparation. Too high catabolism create oxidative stress that will lead to a bad regulation, nutrition during the gestation of the fetus, of the embryo, that will create UGR, loss of embryo or fetus, and weak piglet. Colostrum, one of the forgotten ones. We are lucky with sows. The sows are able to produce this colostrum, which is so important. It is so important. But the preparation of this colostrum that is done during the last 2 weeks, roughly, most of the time, we are not taking this into account. We can play both on the energetic content, the fat content easily, but we can also play on the immunoglobulin content, concentration, which is a key parameter to help the development of the piglet, especially, of course, when we have pressure on antibiotic use. And something important, but that will be related to others, the piglet quality adverse. lack of vitality, lack of weight, lack of immunity, lack of energetic storage that will lead to a problem on the milk production because of a lack of suckling capacity. So those piglet quality, are so important economically. Okay, so during this gestation and around this gestation, those main parameters, we must invest on those periods. We must take time and look how we are feeling the requirement of animals during those periods. Okay, how can we control those sensitivity from the nutrition? Of course, the knowledge is improving. And in the last 10 years, we improved a lot our knowledge. That's really positive. And it is a practical knowledge. We have science, but we have a lot of application. And we have also a lot of area, and mine is part of it, where we did mistakes. We learn from our mistake. And today we can share together the mistake we did in order for you not to do it again. So knowledge about animal, knowledge about nutrition, knowledge about raw material. Okay, and we have two main ways of making application on the farm. We have the accurate nutrition, which is the way, and we will see it accurately, the way to make the feed with a high control on the main constituent in the feed, and the precise feeding, which is the way we will be able to have a bigger range of feeds with the accurate use of it done by animal. And at the end, it will help to have a technico-economical retro control that will provide money. From the knowledge on the animal, one of the latest one is coming from the gut of the sows. The gut of the sows is very important. I will say from a central importance. It's a big one first. We have a huge volume, a big length that will help to have in this big volume, big retention, long retention time, we are facing a complete digester. In this specific gut, it's really easy to use non-digestible component and to produce something from it. Okay, and if we don't control it, because of this very specific configuration with a big secum that will have a lot of bacteria inside that will help for this fermentation, with a very specific stomach that is also a very good preparation for especially the protein, we are able in this specific digester to produce something that can be positive, but that also can be negative. Okay, we have some sensitivity. The first one is sensitivity to oxygen. Every time you provide a stress, social stress, management stress, changing of housing, heat stress, we will have some oxygen that will come from the blood, because we are facing a high vascularization of the gut. So it's very easy to have some oxygen that will come from the blood and enters the lumen. This oxygen is able to completely change the profile of the bacteria inside. And remember that most of the pathogens are aerobic bacteria, opportunistic bacteria, and every time the level of oxygen is increasing, you are providing them the right condition for growth. High sensibility also for pH. Depending on fermentation, you will change the pH, and then it will also help to have a more important change in this population. Okay, we have a high sensitivity and we still have a lot to learn about those bioactive molecules that will help for interaction inside those populations. Okay, I go fast. What's happened inside this small intestine? I should say stomach, small intestine, large intestine, will completely change the way your soul will express the nutrition you will provide to them. If you don't take into account what's happened inside this gut, you are losing money. You may create some immune disorder. You can create some energetic disorder. Anyway, you will face some irregularity and you will create bad situation again for the genetic expression. And you need to remember that from a small stress, if you are not taking into account what's happened inside, you will have a very fast reaction, what we call the gut-brain axis, because we have a huge density of nerves, we can have very fast signal. What does it mean? As soon as you have a fermentation that will happen in the small or in the large intestine, you will have this kind of sensor that are able to check and provide the message very fast because it's nervous message. Okay, we have some proteolytic fermentation, negative one. Then it will create a fast message that will help for a chemical reaction that will lead to inflammation. This inflammation will have a big nutritional cost, but it will also lead to a global immunodepression. That's not what we are looking for. That's also one reason we really need to focus and to control what is happening inside. So again, it's a real digester. If we don't take into account and if we don't try to control, we will have fermentation. They will happen anyway, favorable or not. As soon as you control digestibility in your diet, the kinetic of digestion, not look to a fast starch digestion, for example. Look at the non-digestible fraction of protein, for example, coming from your soybean. Try to control it because it's a direct feeding of pathogen. Also take into account the oxygen release and try to take into account and to control it. Try to be able to make this ratio between non-digestible protein and fermentable fiber. Then you will be able to control favorable population, mostly anaerobic, weak population that are able to make some fermentation from the fiber. So what we call the cellulolytic population, lactic population like a ruminococcus, fibrobacter. Okay, they will create short-chain fatty acid. Sometimes, depending on the quality of the fiber, you can have some butyric acid, which is really important, especially for this gut barrier capacity. And at the opposite, if you are not taking into account enough, or if you have big changes, variability, and if you are not controlling, for example, the non-digestible protein, you may have a development of what we call opportunistic population, mostly aerobic bacteria. They will decrease the global diversity of the global population in the gut, and then you will produce ammoniac, branch short-chain fatty acid, and very fastly you will create disorder. And most of the time, immunodepression. This immunodepression can, for example, create your vaccination yield lower. You pay for vaccination, you don't take care about what's happening in the gut, you are losing your money. your vaccination yield will be low. Okay? So when you don't take into account, you see here what's happened. You will have the red bacteria, aerobic bacteria, that will grow up more and more very fastly. They will create their own toxins. They will create ammoniac. They will create specific metabolite that will have an impact on the mucus, on the epithelium cells shape, on the tight junction between epithelium cells. That means your gut barriers, your first protection, will not be good enough. And then you will have uptake of antigen. You have a lot of pressure, new pressure, coming from outside to inside. And this will create what we call the pathological inflammation. You pay for it. You pay for it. The cost of inflammation is high. Okay, and we are looking for what we call the eubiosis, which is a balance between this family of bacteria. That means aerobic and anaerobic. That means cellulolytic, proteolytic, under control. And then we will have the best, the quality of this gut barrier will be higher, less inflammation, more capacity to produce. Okay, so from nutrition, we need knowledge, accuracy, regularity. How to be able to take all of those information into account. In the past, when I learned nutrition at school, it was enough to focus on digestibility. We focus on the main crude nutrients we have, and we learned about the raw material, and we thought it was enough. What we learned from experience, it is not enough. When we are just focusing on this, we are losing money. We are not controlling everything related to the requirement of animal. Today, as nutritionists, the new job, the modern nutrition, we need to take into account my choice in my feed will have an impact on the microflora. This microflora will have an impact on the physiology, how the organ will be able to reorganize and play. We will have some impact on the gut mucus with a local immunitary system and global immunitary system. So it's one way to make a link between nutrition and health. Okay? So again, this classical nutrition, old-fashioned, I would say, standard nutrition, is focusing on what is digestible. Today, it's not enough. We need to focus on, of course, what is digestible. I agree. But in the same time, we need to know what are the impact of what is not digestible, how to control it. And then we will introduce a physiological impact of this. So it's a much more wider impact and let's say criteria to control from the nutrition. So we need to organize this. And now we have this organization. The nutrition must be organized like this. First part, what we call macronutrition. Macronutrition will deal with nutritional pillars, the first step, okay? The net energy, the protein, the ideal fiber, the phosphorus and the calcium. This is the first step, and we always should have this step done before focusing on others. The second one will be the physiological nutrition. What will be the impact of my feed on organs? What will be the impact on the gastric retention time? That will lead to a better protein digestion. That will improve the protein digestibility. What is the glycemia? When I choose my starch, what will be the impact? When we will get the energy back from this? We need to control it. And the last one is a micronutrition, which is more a cellular nutrition. And we are used to vitamin, trace mineral, and now we need also to adapt to bioactive molecule that will help also to control inflammation and oxidative stress. We saw three main composition of modern nutrition. Then we can accurately adapt our nutrient, our raw material, our feed ingredient in order to face requirement, and then we will express accuracy at all stages. Okay, I will be fast. One of the tools, very important tool for this macronutrition is net energy. Net energy is not accurate enough. The net energy, you will have the last stage of expression of this net energy. So what does it mean? From this net energy, you will express the protein impact on net energy, fiber impact on net energy, starch impact of net energy. All together, we create this synthetic criteria without the thermic effect of the feed. Very important, again, to control and to be able to face requirement in energy. I will spend more time on fiber. Fiber is really, it's a complex family. It's a very complex, let's say, nutritional family. And if you don't take into account what is your fiber composition, I can tell you, by the way, you are losing money. Okay, some fraction you will need a minimum per day. Some fraction you will need the maximum per day. If you don't know, it's impossible to drive. I can tell you, in the past, we did a lot of mistakes because of lack in the nutritional description of fiber. Okay, so usually people are using crude fiber to speak about fiber. We want to describe all this family from hemicellulose to lignin. And if you use crude fiber, I can tell you, you are doing mistake. So today, it's much more common to use soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, instead of crude fiber. Using those two first nutrients, you will be able to express physical capacity and physical impact of the fiber on the animal. One example, if we compare sugar beet pulp and alfalfa, you use the software focusing on crude fiber. For the software, it will be almost the same value in the crude fiber. But in the same time, if you check the soluble and insoluble dietary fiber of those two raw materials, it's completely different. So from the same value in crude fiber, you will express completely different impact on the animal, especially on sow. With this one, maybe you will have constipation with the same value of crude fiber. And maybe in this one, you can express even diarrhea because of the soluble fraction of the fiber that can be dangerous. Okay, so crude fiber is really a bad friend for nutritionists. We should not use crude fiber. We need to find new nutrient that will be able to express as close as possible to reality what are the main fraction of fiber that will have a different impact on the animal. Okay, so crude fiber, really bad friend. And I'm convinced that this crude fiber nutrient explain why a lot of nutritionists doesn't like fiber, because you are not able to express what will happen on this fiber side just focusing on crude fiber. It's impossible. Okay, And the fiber expression is so complex because fiber is, we say that we have 8 dimensions coming from fibers. Of course, the first will be the physical property, water holding capacity, bending capacity, CEC, cation exchange capacity, erosion, abrasion. That's the first step. Okay. This first physical step will also depend on particle size. What will be the process on your fiber? That will completely change the expression of the potential on this physical property. The second one will be what are the physiological property? Fermentation. Okay. All fiber will not be able to produce at the end butyrate, not a lot. Some component, and we spoke about, and we will speak about some wood product, bark product, cambium product, may at the end produce some butyrate that can create a big difference in, again, energetic feeding of epithelium cells, but in the same time, improvement of the gut barrier. Okay, and depending on the non-digestible protein, so the nutritional, the other nutrient of the diet, your fiber expression can be completely different. Depending on the oxygen, the stress, the glycemic index, you may change the fiber expression. So again, it's so complex that the first step, you must have the right nutrient to describe what you have in your formulation. And for me, now maybe we began more than 10 years ago, we are using soluble dietary fiber, insoluble dietary fiber, inert fiber, that means the fibers that are not able to fermentate at all, never, from a piglet to a sow, so for an immature to a mature animal, those inerts will not be able to fermentate. And the main fermentable component, even including some resistant starch and soluble polysaccharide, which are not directly in this fiber family. Okay, and the company agromed is investing a lot with with some university in order to provide to the market this information. And those information, like this one, that means for all the nutrients to be able to make a differentiation between inert, soluble dietary fiber, insoluble dietary fiber, they will be able to have this information by this year. It's done. It will be a scientific paper that will be all by agromed, and this can help a lot the way you will be able to use the fiber. And in this case, with those nutrients, you will be able to control first what from experience I can tell you, the risky fraction of soluble. If you are not to take this one under control, you can have diarrhea. You can have MMA around farrowing, at farrowing. And if you are using crude fiber, it's impossible to control it, okay? So nutrients are very important. Another one, in the same time that we are speaking about fiber, here we speak about protein. I will be fast, but that's also very important. In your diet, not only focusing on crude protein, but as soon as you are able to express what is a non-digestible fraction, you are able to express how you will feed the pathogen, because this non-digestible fraction will not be used by the animal, never, but will always be used by mostly aerobic proteolytic bacteria, mostly pathogen, and that will create disorder. Okay, So we describe requirement of the animal and we express it in macronutrition, physiological nutrition, and micronutrition. And I will not describe everything, but just to say, in front of those requirements, thanks to macro, physio, micro, we will be able to check if from our diet we are able to face the main requirement, the main needs of the animal. Not only the first digestibility that we did in the past. We can go much deeper, including physiological impact. Okay? And of course, those requirements are changing every day during the gestation, of course. And what does it mean? One feed is not able to be very close to the requirement because, of course, the ratio between the main nutrient will change during the gestation. For our farmer today, it's minimum 2 feeds during gestation. The best one are 3 feeds. And we are working for more accuracy on this. And I can tell you, we are saving money. And now we have software, we create software, and we are able to calculate for every day, depending on the type of the source. On this slide, you can see for 2 different sources, 2 different genetic. I will not give the genetic type, but because the phenotype is different, the size of the animal is different, because the production of the animal will be different, the number of teats will be different. That means inside the gestation, the quantity per day of net energy, the quantity of ideal protein expressed here with the lysine will be different. The quantity in soluble dietary fiber, insoluble dietary fiber, and inert will be different. Okay, so those are minimum for one type of source. If you are not covering those one, you will not express the full potential of the animal. Okay, it's the same information expressed differently. We need to have this global picture that are able to include all the nutrients, again, micro, macro, physio, to cover the requirement. So we have this eye of efficiency. Again, micro, macro, physio, and we are able to change the population and the balance between population in this gut. Those populations will be able to produce very specific metabolite that will act on your animal. And your animal will react if it's negative, or will benefit if it's positive. But at the end, our work of nutritionist is not only to deal with the digestibility, but is to be able to face this kind of microbiota. Here it's one color, one family of bacteria. We want to have and to face high cellulolytic population, like here, Ruminococcus, and low aerobic proteolytic, like Salmonella, like E. coli, like Clostridium, that we really want to control. We can control it from the quality of the feed and the balance between nutrients. Okay, another example, more and more important in our modern production of swine, is physiological nutrition. How from nutrition we can control what we call the intrauterine growth retardation, EUGR. Mostly playing on the ovocyte maturation. You remember, you will be able to limit catabolism during the last part of gestation, limit it during the lactation, provide fibers that will help for a global better glycemia that will help to express hormones better, that will lead to a better ovocyte maturation. More embryo, better placentation, nidification, and better intrauterine nutrition. You limit weak piglets, you improve your carcass quality, helping a better muscular differentiation around 40 days of gestation. It will help you save money at the end. Okay. And something which is really important, to be able to control oxidative stress, especially during those periods of catabolism. Oxidative stress is something normal when you control it. As soon as it becomes too high, it becomes negative, and then you will not able to express the highest fetal nutrition or before the ovocyte maturation, and then you can create also, again, immunodepression and some problem. So you really also need to be able to face this micronutrition, of course, with the classical vitamin, but more and more and more in order to regenerate those vitamins and to have a better global efficiency, trace mineral and polyphenol, flavonoid, like a quercetin, catechin, some phenolic acid that will completely improve the capacity to react in front of oxidative stress. Again, they will be able to help your cells to express the genetics potential, even going through stresses. Okay, so it's maybe a little bit fast. First, the conclusion of this short speech. First, the cheapest feed are not a guarantee for the lowest cost of production. The cheapest is not providing the lowest cost of production. At the opposite, the highest performance, like PSY, like FCR, they are not a guarantee for the lowest cost of production as well, because sometimes the cost of it is so high that what you invest, you are not paid back. So as you say at the beginning, we said that it's also a matter of balance. This one for me is very important. Inaccurate nutrient. Again, like a crude fiber, like a metabolic energy, will create uncertainty, disorder. You will not be able to think in advance what will happen. You will not be able to forecast what will be the benefit for the animal. You create variation, you create uncertainty. That's not the best way to control the economical efficiency. Controlling digestibility, as we learned in the past at school, is not enough. It is not enough, definitely. Now, we must control physiological impact, mostly coming from the non-digestible fraction, mostly acting on this gut microbiota. Okay? Kinetic of digestion, playing on starch quality, playing on particle size, playing on the time of the meal, the size of the density of the feed is also something that is becoming more and more and more important to create a kind of welfare, a kind also a way to make energy and protein meet together to improve the FCR. And in this modern nutrition, macro, physio, micro, we are able to play on, of course, maintenance, let's say production, growth, and health. Doing this, we can improve the sow's longevity, of course, productivity, and the capacity of the piglet to improve its efficiency. just playing on the fundamental requirement of source. Okay, it is something which is done already. It's feasible, it's affordable. It's not only coming from scientific trials. No, it's coming from the reality. I can tell you, I'm adapting this in a lot of big integrators, and most of them are keeping this, and it's positive, and it makes life easier, of course. And to convert the progress into money, into income, we need to think about, of course, accurate nutrition. We have some word about it. Again, step by step, not everything from scratch, step by step. And in the same time, we are focusing on accurate nutrition. We need to be able to think about accurate feeding, range of feed, mechanization, way and the hour of distribution, the way we can mix feed together. So all the tools that can be used on the farm to mix and to make requirement and feed and the nutrition quality meets together. And if I came back to the first word of this presentation, when we play, for example, on the physio and fiber, here you have what we call the logical tree of production for source. Here it's a criteria of PSY, wind per sow per year. This criteria, it's a synthetic one. It's coming from the total born, the born alive, the losses, so the piglet wind per source, and here, let's say the productivity and what is related to reproduction, farrowing index. Of course, gestation duration, lactation duration, non-productive day, remating, farrowing rate, replacement source. Most of those criteria are positively affected by fiber and antioxidant. If you look at the green, it's all criteria that are directly related to this management of modern nutrition, and in this modern nutrition, the fiber fraction. Okay, what does it mean? For sows, almost all of them are directly driven from this, let's say, fiber management, this gut microbiota management. Okay. The second criteria, you remember, you have productivity, and in the second hand, you have piglet quality, weight, maturity, vitality, immunity, what we can call potentiality. All of them are directly related to inflammation rate, oxidative stress, and direct nutrition during this gestation. And again, from fiber, antioxidant capacity, all of them should be, can be, will be improved by the fiber management. So the success and the lower cost, the lowest cost of production will come from a global approach, of course, and good choices in raw material and ingredient. And I come back to the wood-based hygiene factor component. Again, as Mathieu said, with bark, cambium, phloem, and trunk, you can have some fiber, insoluble, fermentable, and bioactive molecule that will help to take their part in the global strategy to fulfill the fundamental requirements. Okay. It was fast. Thank you for your attention, and I can answer your questions. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Pierre. Merci beaucoup. Alors, on a quelques questions. A ver, se las voy diciendo en francés, luego en español, y usted, Lourdes, si puede traducir la respuesta. Je ne sais pas si tu les vois, les questions. La première est, do you recommend the use of sugar in guilds? How much how much does the source of energy affect the productive parameters of the guild?
Mathieu, where do you see the question? Okay, I can see it. Okay. Okay. So the use of sugar guilt. So for me, you should use sugar, of course, just in preparation of the estrus, the insemination. Okay. It should not be used in the classical nutrition of the guilt. Again, the glycemia is something important. And during the classical feeding of your guilt, during this preparation, you must control a low glycemia. It's only around this estrus that you can use, for example, dextrose or dextrose and lactose in order to create, at the opposite, a high insulinemia that will create high LH pulses release and better estrus. So 1 week before insemination and around 300 grams per day.
Ok. Ensuite, quel serait le niveau de fibre de l'inocellulose pour des rations en gestation basées sur le somme de blé entre 100 et 140 kg par tonne? Et est-ce qu'il reste de l'espace pour ajouter des fibres? C'est-à-dire, le sens de la question, pour refaire la tonne d'aliments complète, une fois que tu as enlevé du somme de blé. La pregunta es, ¿cuál sería la dosis de fibras de árbol para dietas de gestación que se basan con salvado de trigo entre 100 y 140 kilos por tonelada, si queda espacio por agregar fibras, es decir, para lograr la tonelada completa?
Alors, pour répondre, to answer in English, yes, to answer this question, I will answer step by step. First, for a gestation, we are looking at the minimum of 2% of soluble and 20% of insoluble. To achieve it, wheat bran can be from a good help. If you want to use, for example, Opticell and wheat bran together, you will need to find something that will bring small amount of soluble fiber. Okay, what does it mean? If I take, for example, your question, basan de 140 por tonelada.
Oui.
That's mean, for example, if I take an example, it will be close to 2% of the Opticell. You can use 14% of a wheat bran, and you will need something that come from, for example, barley or small amount of sugar beet pulp that can bring, and if you have, that can bring this soluble fraction of fiber. What is important is to balance. Okay.
Ok. Un peu en lien avec ça, can you give us recommendation on publications about soluble and insoluble fiber during gestation and lactation? Donc les recommandations et les sources, sur quelles publications tu t'appuies pour les faire?
For the analysis, we use what we call the Prosky method, which is a method coming from the NRC in States. The Prosky method, another name is AOAC method. You use it in the labs, and it will provide you the soluble dietary fiber, the total dietary fiber, and you can calculate the insoluble dietary fiber. That's the analysis. And for what I use as an inert part of fiber, we use the cellulose, the lignin, and the non-digestible cellulose. And to answer the question, in lactation, we are looking for 1.9% of soluble, 1.9% of soluble, and 80 to 90% of soluble. That's for lactation. And for gestation, we are using 2.4 of soluble and 21 of insoluble. And if you don't have enough raw material, one first step for gestation can be 2 of soluble and 20 of insoluble. Okay? What is important, again, is to balance. If you have too high level of soluble, you will have problem of retention time, you will have problem of pathogen development. And at the opposite, if you don't have enough insoluble fraction, you have a problem of water holding capacity. You will have a problem of yield of fermentation. So it will not be positive. So what is important is to balance.
Et donc, les recommandations que tu fais, sur quelle publication scientifique ou sur quelle base de données tu te bases, toi, quand tu prends en compte ces recommandations-là?
It's mostly coming from experience. We have experience in INRA, we have experience in the Denmark, and Knudsen is coming from the Danish. This guy is for me is the man thinking fiber in the world. Knudsen in Denmark did a lot of experience on this, and we use it now in my area. More than 10 years ago, we began with this, and I can tell you now and before, for farmer, it's completely different. It makes life much more easier, very easy to apply.
Yep. Do you think an efficient way of measuring the level of feed during the lactation is the number of days between weaning and first service?
It's really in the PSY, this weaning to estrus interval is very important. And fiber will be one driver, but it's not the only one. In the same time, again, the protein catabolism, the way you will use too high level of other intestine and muscle to produce the protein which is needed for lactation, and sometimes even for the fetus before following, will completely change the impact of LH, the impact of the hormone that will play on this estrus efficiency. So fiber is involved, protein is involved, and there is another criteria, which is the leptin coming from the fat. Okay, as soon as you have fatty sauce, it will make things even at a lower level. It will create less efficiency for the hormonal expression. So fiber, protein, but also body condition.
Okay, another question, which is which nutritional strategy should we take where we don't have an access to sugar beet?
That's one true difficulty. When the market is, you don't have a lot of different raw material to achieve the fiber composition, it can be a difficulty. But instead of sugar beet pulp, you can use citrus pulp, you can use pectin pulp, you can use some product. As soon as you have good criteria to describe, you can mix in a global fiber strategy, including the OptiCell, to be able in the middle to play on the insoluble but fermentable fraction. That means you can decrease the global quantity of fiber with the same impact. So my work every week, I'm helping my customer to use local raw material, but I can tell you it's never enough. So you need a global strategy. Use as much as possible in the right balance what you have in local, as soon as it's clean, without mycotoxin, without bacterial contamination, and try to find clever way to improve your density in fiber with no risk, with no contamination. That's the reason why, as a nutritionist, I'm using and I agree to speak about the product of agromed, because it's a good way to make things with high density, lower risk of contamination.
Okay, next question. What about the use of subproducts from agriculture, for example, straw?
Straw, we use it in the past, and we use it a lot, and we completely stopped, mostly because it was impossible to predict the mycotoxin content. And everything we want to improve from the gut management, as soon as you have a contamination in Don, for example, what you are doing to improve the gut barrier, when you have a Don contamination, you open it. So that means you invest, and in the same time, you are losing money. So straw was, first, it's completely inert. I will not say it's not good, but it's not what we are looking for, and the risk of mycotoxin is too high. So it can be part of the strategy, but under control and small amount.
Merci. Next question. How does the inclusion of fiber in sauce impact the intake?
Impact, Mathieu?
The impact of fiber on the intake of the sauce.
Of the feed intake. Of the feed intake, yes. We have some very nice confirmation, scientific confirmation from Brazil, from Bruno Silva, that shows that, and we did it several times, and now we have the scientific explanation. As soon as you have the right balance in the fiber, even through its stress, you will improve the feed intake. The main reason is the glycemic index. When you don't have fiber, when you have mostly, let's say, corn, soybean diet, half an hour after the meal, we have a peak of glycemia. So when you have the peak, everything is okay. As soon as the quantity of glucose in the blood decreases, then the feed behavior of the sows will be irregular. And globally speaking, they will eat less. And in the same time, when you have high density feed, you will express a high, what we call, thermic effect of the feed, TFE. And this thermic effect of the feed every time leads to decrease the feed global quantity. Okay, so it's a physiological reason, mostly driven by insulin and glycemia.
Okay, merci. Then, would it be correct to add fiber when the temperature is plus grande que 25 degrés? Cuando pasamos de los 25 grados de temperatura ambiental.
For me, you as soon as it's stress is it's a stress, and it will create both oxidative stress and inflammation. You must use fiber. I will say, because you are facing its stress, the requirement of fiber you cannot do without. But in the same time, you really need to control your fiber quality. You need to have to control exactly what you need, and not more than what you need. Again, and when you use accurate nutrient, it's quite easy to have what you are looking for and not more, and to limit the variation that can create some problems, some perturbation on the animal. And again, when you are using fiber through its stress or at thermal neutrality, you will completely change the activity of the animal. So you will decrease the stress, but in the same time, they will sleep more, they will express less heat coming from the feed, again, the thermic effect of the feed. Then they will feel better, you will be able to face a better welfare, and then they will eat more.
Okay, and the last question, could you give us a recommendation on publications about soluble and insoluble fiber in the description of feed ingredients?
So if you look at main publication, for the moment, they are focused on ADF, NDF, and lignin, and sometimes crude fiber, and it's not directly a publication. That's the reason why agromed, if I come back to agromed, they are doing this Beyond Europe project, calculating for Latin America raw material, Asia raw material, Europe material, and in January in agromed you will have all those information, characterization of the main raw material and their value in soluble, insoluble, and inert value. Again, tables are important, but what is also important, because with fiber you have huge variability, is to be able to analyze it from the factory. Using table at the beginning can be a first step, but I can tell you, because from one windbrown to another one, you can have big difference. From a soybean meal to another one, you can have big difference. You should be able to find solution to do it from your factory. And now, for example, if I take my company, we are doing it with the infrared, with NIR, very fast, and we have equation, and it's accurate enough, but in the factory.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last question. Era la última pregunta. Nuevamente agradecer a Mena, agradecer a todos los asistentes, y ahora le voy a dar la palabra a la señorita Ana Esparza de Amena para que nos haga llegar un comunicado sobre las actividades de la asociación. Muchísimas gracias a todos, que tengan un bonito fin de tarde, una buena noche, y hasta luego. Cuídense mucho en estos tiempos. Gracias, saludos.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Mati. Muchas gracias, Pierre. Bueno, en primer lugar, pues agradecerle a Grupo ISA y agromed por darnos esta charla. Excelente trabajo del doctor Pierre Lebreton. Estuvo aquí hablando de este tema tan interesante. Les comentamos que la grabación estará en nuestro canal de YouTube, entonces por si quieren revisar algo, ahí estará. Muchas gracias, doctor. Que tenga bonita noche. Les mandé por ahí un enlace, si nos pueden ayudar contestando esta encuesta, dura menos de un minuto, la pueden contestar rapidísimo. Está ahí en el chat general de participantes. Igualmente, pues les dejo aquí algunos. El próximo lunes tenemos otro seminario de nutrición. Tenemos la presentación del ingeniero Juan Francisco Cervantes con el tema la importancia del capital humano en la planta de alimentos balanceados y al ingeniero Miguel Ángel López con el tema puntos críticos en la elaboración de alimentos balanceados. Es el próximo lunes 26 de octubre a las 17 horas. Aquí está el ID de Zoom. También les estaremos mandando por ahí un correo. Igualmente, la siguiente semana, el martes 3 de noviembre, tenemos otro seminario técnico-comercial, esta vez de parte de Novus. Aquí pueden ver los ponentes, al doctor Germán Borbolla y al doctor Demian Fernández. Igualmente, aquí está la ID, les estaremos mandando un correo con la información. Los esperamos entonces la siguiente semana y la que sigue. Y finalmente les recuerdo que pues está nuestro canal de YouTube, pueden buscar en la barra del navegador Amena AC y ahí encontrarán la grabación de estos videos o aquí está el enlace. Y pues eso sería todo de nuestra parte. Nuevamente agradecer a los ponentes, agradecerle al Grupo ISA, agromed por hacer esto posible y pues a ustedes también por participar.